Susannah, did you always have a clear path of where you were going to go? Did you wake up one day and you say, you know what, I'm going to do direct sales, I'm going to do pitch sports, and I'm going to get into boxing? Did you always have that clear path, or was this something that evolved?
I always want to say, yes, this has been a complete strategic decision, but it's not. It's been an opportunity that's come along. And I always say when one door closes, it's because something else swings open. You might have to kick that door open, but there's something else that swings open. So I started at Royal Mail. It was really, I did a few bits and pieces jobs before then. My nanny looked after some kids, did some other bits and pieces. When I started at Royal Mail, I started on the phone, really just basic answering calls. And within a very short time, I've managed to move up to look after everyone who answered the phones. And then that was my first bit of management, and they sent me on a course, and then from there I actually went out onto the streets and sold at the time of what we called account management with a portfolio. Then I ended up managing. It was literally just a natural progression within. But interestingly, because when you say to people I spent nearly 20 years at Royal Mail, it's such a phenomenal amount of time, but because I changed jobs almost every 18 months and worked in different fractions, from sales to marketing to the post office to operations, it was almost always like starting another job. Everything changed, the way of working changed, and I think I have an awful lot to thank them for, because they believed in me in a very male-dominated environment. They absolutely believed in me, and I never felt it hindered me. I never felt it held me back. But as a business, they were very open to letting people try and grow and support and encourage, as long as you hit your goals and you showed you were working hard. From there, I got to a point where, as you rightly say, managing hundreds of people, turning hundreds, millions of pounds of business was phenomenal. I set that, the new business sales that we set were just 3 of us. There were myself and I, 2 members of staff, and it took 4 years, but then we had 800 people and 500 people and 800 million turning. So we didn't do badly from what we thought when it was all privatised, and we were, oh my gosh, we're going to have to go out and sell some stuff rather than just getting it by default. It was a lovely journey to go on, and when I look back, I'm not really sure how we managed that or how I managed it, but at the time it was just the day job. You just got up and you did it, and there was pressure, and of course there was always things to do and goals and objectives and the whole kind of remit of it. But when I finally got to the end of that, I thought I'd almost done it. I became their commercial director and looked after a wholly owned subsidiary, so set up micro businesses for Royal Mail, really, for want of a better word, which was fascinating and really good fun. But I suddenly thought, I'm going to do that for myself. So I moved into setting up Pitch. And before then, actually, the direct selling world, I'd dabbled in setting up a direct selling company when I was on my maternity leave with my first daughter, Brooke, but realised that the funding you need behind that, and to make it really work, you need a massive infrastructure. But that was my first dabble into direct selling, and I understood then the enormous opportunity within the industry. So I had a few side hustles myself, worked for other organisations, and then thought, no, we'd set up Pitch Sport. But that, if I'm honest, was it was really born out of a conversation that, having a tech background, set an app up for Royal Mail for the shopping, quite like the idea of apps being a way to communicate with people. At the time, my husband was moaning bitterly that nobody listened to sports fans and that nobody listened to football fans, and I actually jokingly said, that you can moan at, will you stop moaning at me? Because, that's actually quite a good idea. So I sat down and scoped it up. And the irony of this is I don't just listen to my husband now moaning about football, I listen to hundreds of thousands of other people listening about it and moaning about it too. So I can't get away from it. It's my own worst nightmare. But no, it was, and then it just grew from there. We had the football was there, and that gave us the team sports. We then developed the motorsports because that moved a track, and then we needed one-on-one. And the one-on-one, we could have done tennis, we could have done golf. I've always been a massive boxing fan, so I thought, you know what, we'll be a little bit selfish and we'll put it into boxing. But it's also a very fragmented market, so the opportunity was there. But I think it's not been, the DSA job was taken on as an interim position, but then I just saw the opportunity, saw what we could do with that if we got it really right, and just wanted to deliver on that. So yeah, I'd love to say my career path has been that way, even down to writing the book, if I'm honest. There was a moment then when I set about, and all I did was write. I sat on Vince Cable at the time, the Red Tape Initiative, about how to cut through red tape for small businesses. And I wrote a small white paper, and that got picked up by one of the daily, I think it was the Telegraph or the Times published it. And then a publishing house, Kogan Page, contacted me and said, this is a really lovely, the way of explaining what not to do. Do you think you could turn it into a book? And I thought, wow, how hard can that be? Turns out it's really difficult, actually. Turning a couple of 100 words into 80,000 was just, but it was great fun to do. Absolutely brilliant. And it was great. And the nice thing about the book was we worked with 100 individual companies to get their feedback on what good looked like. So the book's Mind the Gap and Creating Successful Business Strategy. And it was about, at the time when tech, we're going back into 2009-10. So it was a long time when tech was still developing. And actually what's interesting about that was measuring the gap between what actually happens in a company, between what employees think, between what customers think happens in a company, and actually what they want to see from that brand. And that gap is very dangerous. So it was a kind of a concept. Be careful what you say to your employees and how you think people perceive you, because do your customers actually perceive you in that way? And it was an interesting narrative to go down and learn, but it was a great opportunity to learn lots about lots of companies.
How do you handle challenges? Because we've got to deal with challenges. You talked about the pandemic and everything being shut down. We've had so many, life is full of challenges. What's your style to handle challenges?
Honestly, Don, and it's not right for everybody, but if there's something that just doesn't look right, it doesn't feel right, it's not going away. There's no point ignoring it. There's no point procrastinating around it. You just have to meet it head on and deal with it. And as I said to you, no one gets up deliberately to have a bad day. People don't deliberately make catastrophic mistakes, but if you've done it, you just have to deal with it. And if there's a challenge that's there, I think the more you dance around it, sometimes the bigger the challenge can become. Now, there's been times when I've not wanted to do something, I've not wanted to make the phone call or send the email because I think, oh, this might go wrong. But actually, full on, right, this is it, this is the scenario, here we're going to do, how we're going to deal with it, let's deal with it. Because ultimately the result will be the result. But I think if you meet those challenges head on, sensibly, calm, and maybe sometimes it's you go head on, but then you need to take a step back and say, right, here are my options now, what do I do? I've learned over the years to act in haste can be disastrous. You have to take it slightly more slowly and slightly more considered. But yeah, as a whole, I think, yes, I definitely like to go at it, see how I can achieve.
Absolutely. And it's always the way. Albert Einstein said, in the middle of every difficulty lies opportunity. And I've always thought, wherever there's a challenge, there's an opportunity right there. But you've got to look at it. Say, you won't get it if you don't go head on and dwell into it. What's the problem here? Why is it not working?